Hello, my name is Sarah M. Oliver, and I'm an assistant professor at the School of Music, Theater, and Dance. I'm here today to talk about some embodied learning that I do in my course, which I teach a fashion course called Western Silhouettes. What I want to talk about is some community building that I do at the beginning of the course to kind of ease into the course, to let students know that maybe this course is a little bit different than some of the other classes that they take. Sort of letting them know that they might be a little more active, they might be a little more connected to their students. So one of the things that I do is I want to get them to know each other, and so I have kind of a very low-tech means to do that, but it kind of follows through the whole class. I have made these little periactoids, and on the front here, they get to write their name, their pronouns, whatever they prefer, and I have pre-cut out little people that they get to use, and they just sit right inside a little slot at the top, and we practice this on the first day of class. We actually don't sit in the chairs. We come together in the middle of the room and we sit in a circle on the floor, and we talk about who we see ourselves, and we talk about fashion, and we talk about the fact that we dress differently every day, how we present ourselves, and that this fashion avatar, we talk about visual avatars that might be in the computer space, the digital space, and our space on our bodies every day in class, and that they get to dress this, and that this avatar can have a different form when they come to class every day. And so some of the students will actually dress it when they come to class, and that they can change this how they feel in class. So a good example of how a student might identify and let me know that they want to be really engaged in the class is that they have a very active avatar that day. One example of a student who had an SSD or didn't want to always be as active in the class, but sometimes did want to be very active and have a very embodied learning experience, their avatar had sunglasses. So if they had a day where they wanted to participate fully and really be involved physically in the class, then their avatar did not wear their sunglasses. And then if they had a day where they really did not feel like they could actively engage, their avatar would wear their sunglasses. And it was a really great way for all of the students and myself to know what their person was feeling and what they were feeling because their avatar reflected it. And then no one had to ask questions. So it was great. It's been very useful. It's a very low-tech way. It's cardboard paper. Interesting and wonderful way for everyone in the class to signal what they were feeling. And students really got into it, and they really kind of dressed their avatars, especially in a fashion course. So it was an interesting exercise. The space that I'm in, it allows, I really want to use that space and make sure that we're not always sitting at the chairs and at the tables. We get up, we move around. We might have days where we change seats depending upon what color we're wearing, what fashion that we have on, and we regroup our community depending upon what fashion objects we have on, what space. So we really move around the room, and I believe that moving and changing the atmosphere in the room really can uplift and kind of give the whole space a different feeling. One of the other things that you might feel is that when we look at our slides, when what might typically be a fashion course, that you're looking at slides on the slide lecture and you're like, oh, yeah, I get it, I understand. But actually students sometimes don't quite understand what's going on beneath the clothing. One of the things that I do quite often is try to bring in garments if I can. And we have days where they try them on and they physically put those garments on, and they can walk and move in the space and feel what that garment does to their body and changes the latitude and the feeling and the shape. And other students in the room can move around physically and look at their bodies now with those garments on. Everybody gets up, moves around the space, and it really does activate the room and change the feeling of, yes, this is what a historic garment might expand out the shape, change the physical nature of it. So anytime that I can bring an item to the room and have students view it, it really is amazing. And I want everyone to come and get up and move around the space. Also, looking at slides, sometimes we look at a lot of period historic research. Students look at it, they look at this amazing research and they go, oh yes, I understand what's going on underneath that garment. I understand what understructures there might be in that fashion garment. And they think they know, but in fact, they don't always know. So I bring in my mannequins, and I have these small maquette mannequins, and we'll actually dress them. So they do hands-on physical exercises where they dress them and they start to understand that what they think they know isn't always what they know. So one of the things we have in the like Elizabethan era is they have these wheel drum farthingales. And one of the things they understand is they look at them, and I have made these for them, these kind of like little maquette costume pieces. And the first thing that they'll do is I give them to them, and they start to work with them, and they look at the research, and they'll put them on, and they will tie them on the back, and invariably they put them on, and they're like, oh, this absolutely does not look like the research. I'm missing some pieces. And they don't quite understand all the pieces that go underneath. And they quickly understand they are missing an important piece in the costume party pieces, the bum roll, the bum pad. And we go back, and then we start to understand and look at some of the pieces that are underneath, and we go, oh yeah, we need to try these pieces on. And they start experimenting with the different sizes and different shapes. And then they get to physically try them and manipulate them with their groups. And they start to look and tie them on and really understand what the shape or the pitch, what it does to the body, the little mannequin body. And then they start to realize that that pad holds that wheel up, and it actually starts to look more like the research. And with the research up above their heads, they're like, oh, yes, I see. And then they can experiment, bring in different sizes, they look in different shapes, and they start to realize, oh, that's what it takes. That's the hidden pieces that are underneath the garment. And it's really impactful for them to do that. Another exercise when we study saris, draped pieces that go around the body, we watch films of that, and it looks very clear, but until you start to do it in class, they don't quite understand how it drapes around the body. So again, just as something as simple as bringing in a piece of fabric for them to practice with. It looks easy, and then all of a sudden they have a slippery piece of fabric in their hand, and they just can't figure out how it goes around. And just giving them space and time and groups to work about how it might fold around the body, how it might drape. When you have a garment that doesn't use closures and pins, where it might drape around the body, and just working with groups, small groups, and within, I think, community, it makes a huge difference of what they're going to do. So the other question I get a lot is, what do I need? How do I get groups to work together? Sometimes you have students that don't want to jump in. They might not feel like they have the skills. And so you can let them identify they want to work together. Sometimes I do what I said, might group them at the start of class. I might say, okay, everybody who's wearing pink today goes into this group. Everybody who's wearing blue today goes into that group. And I identify the groups before we do the exercises. And we start to make groups together before they know what the exercise is. And we might start with small things that they're doing together before they build up to doing a larger exercise. So they start to have a bit of a community before they have to commit to a larger exercise together. Sometimes when we just jump into doing something that they feel has a lot of weight to it, they might be a little more stressed out about going ahead and doing that exercise. Sometimes doing these exercises, if you add a lot of points to it or you make it worth a large point of the grade, they also feel a little stressed. So I try to make the exercises in the beginning when I build up to them, that they're in-class exercises that we do that don't have point values. Then we slowly build up, and then they might have point values to them. And try to give them choice. Sometimes I give them choice about the groups that they're in. Sometimes we practice the in-class exercise, and then it builds up to something that they might do at home so that they can practice the investigations at home, but that gives them a little bit more freedom to what they're doing. So you might have a student that might not want to participate in the class at the time, that they feel like they don't want to be a part of an experiment that is within a group that's maybe feel too hands-on for them. I sometimes give them the option of sitting and watching the activity, and then they can go home and practice the activity at home. They could do a research paper. Sometimes they can write about it. and have a research paper that they turn into me or a research paragraph about the activity so that they can still think and reflect upon what we've done, but they may not feel that they can jump in with the group. And for various reasons, you have students that feel that. Or they may not physically be able to for all the various reasons. And so a lot of times I will have students that continue on the exercise at home in a space that they feel comfortable with materials that they feel comfortable working with. When I first started teaching, many years ago, I would teach what we considered art in the dark or slide lecture class. Standard, put up the slide, I was the sage on the stage, I would talk. Students learned, but there wasn't as much interaction, there wasn't as much investment from the students in the class, and they learned, they left the class. Now the class is slower paced. I definitely have much more prep work when I come to class, but I feel like the students are so much more engaged and invested in the process with embodied learning that we work together towards the goal, and the understanding when we leave the space is so much more. And maybe there's always going to be the student that doesn't quite enjoy the process, but at the end of it, I find for most students that it's so empowering and that they understand the material so much more on a visceral level, and that is what I find so engaging about the work. And it is worth the extra time that I put in. It is worth maybe the extra time that you have in office hours working with your students, and the growth of the student is what I find so empowering about it. And when you have all the students awake, they are there, they're not on their devices, they are in the room, and this class goes so fast. Everyone, the intensity of it, it feels a lot of times like giving a TED Talk. Everyone is there in the space, and that is what I love about embodied learning.